Hi, good morning. Welcome to this special meeting of the Board of Water Resources. It is 8:01 a.m. on June 28th, and we are meeting virtually as noticed in the public notice. I'm Juliette Tenner, chairing the Board of Water Resources. I have with us today members of the board in a quorum: Randy Crozier, Mike Davis, Charles Holmgren, and Kyle Stevens. Director Hosninger, can you introduce the participants from your team that are on the virtual meeting today?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We're coming to you from room 314, the anchor location. With me today, I've got Shalaine DeBernardi, Marisa Egbert, Marty Bushman, our AG, and then Shannon Clow is online taking minutes. Thank you, Shannon. And I think that covers us.
All right, thank you. Well, let's go ahead and jump into the agenda, the one agenda item that has been publicly noticed. We are here today to take action on a new application period for the remaining secondary meter ARPA grant funding. And I will turn the time over to Shalaine for a report. I'll remind the board members that we have had this material before us to review. And so hopefully you've taken that time to review it. You've asked any questions of staff ahead of time that you need to, and then also we will have the opportunity to ask questions of staff and have further discussion this morning. So Shalaine, please take it away.
Thank you, Juliette. I did want to just go ahead and put this up on the screen as a reminder. I did email this out and we did post it online, so trying to make it visible to all. As you recall, just a little over a week ago, even though the board had authorized and committed all $250 million in ARPA grants with the withdrawals of projects last week. Sorry, I have to pause. Brian Steed has joined. Thank you, Brian. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and sorry for being late. I had some tech problems this morning.
That's okay. We weren't expecting you. We'd been told you couldn't make it, so I'm glad you're here.
Okay.
Just getting started. With the withdrawal of projects last week and the conversion of some others, there are now additional ARPA funds available. As with the standard requirements set up by the ARPA funds the board received, these funds must be contracted by the end of this year and spent by the end of 2026. The board intends to use these allocated funds completely, and to do so will require an additional application period. But due to the limited amount of time remaining this year, in order to allow staff and the board to complete the necessary processes, we are also asking the board to give us an additional direction about the requirements we can set for application. It is important to note that most of the original statutory requirements and limitations apply to these remaining funds, but changes to the law did increase the maximum amount that an applicant can receive. From the appropriation, the $200 million appropriation that's governed by the statute, secondary water providers with 7,000 connections or less are now eligible for up to $10 million, while those with more than 7,000 connections are eligible for up to $20,000.
20 million.
20 million. Sorry. Yes. Thank you for the correction. Sorry. It's a Friday morning. And grants awarded this year, we did want to note, are limited to 65% of project costs, not the 70% that we've been able to do for the last couple of years. So in light of that, we didn't ask for additional direction as far as prioritizing and ranking. We believe we have clear direction from the February 2023 special electronic meeting when we got direction from you about the third round of applications. So it is staff's intent to continue with that process, to just use the same process that was given before to do the same thing with this fourth round. But staff recommends that the board set a fourth application period of July 1st, 2024 through July 8th, 2024. And staff also recommends that the board state that only applicants who meet all the board, state, and federal requirements to receive ARPA grant funds at the time of application are eligible in this round. So that is my report. Are there any questions?
Great, thank you, Shalaine. I understand that there is public comment. Just want to note that we'll come back to that public comment after board questions and board discussion. And just for efficiency's sake, I'm going to go to each board member to see if you have questions, just to coordinate our discussion. Feel free to ask any questions that you need to, and if you feel like you have full information, of course, don't feel like you have to ask questions. But I'll go ahead and go to board member Brian Steed, who's just joined us. Board member Steed, do you have any questions of the staff or any comment on this?
I think it sounds like a reasonable approach, and I think we'd be foolish not to spend the money. So just my thoughts. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Board member Davis.
Yes, I agree with board member Steed. I think this is an appropriate method for us to proceed forth, and hopefully we can get some of those funds into our communities to help with this issue, to get more meters in, and to just help the communities use less water. So I think it's a great thing to do.
Great, thank you. Board member Holmgren.
I have no comments or questions. I think it looks good, and as we've discussed it before, so I'm on board.
All right, thank you. Board member Stevens.
Thank you, Chairman Tennert. I wanted to add, you made a comment about the fact that there have been public comments posted. I was privy to some earlier emails that came from Rick Smith, the general manager of Davis-Weber County Canal Companies, outlining a number of issues and concerns. And so I was wanting to ask Shalaine or Marisa if those are the public comments that you're referring to.
Yes, he did.
Okay.
Rick submitted 2 comments, so I will be reading those out.
What?
So how do you vote? Yeah.
Right. Well, why don't we after reading the public comments, and we can absolutely have some additional time for discussion and questions. But thank you for pointing to that. Any other
Okay, and then
questions?
Well,
Comments at this
just
time?
finish my comments. You know, I agree with the previous board members' statements that we certainly need to take advantage of, putting this money to use, and hopefully, with the questions and concerns that were raised by, the public comment, hopefully we'll be able to adequately address that, and again, just put the money to good use.
Great, thank you. And finally, board member Crozier.
I'm certainly supportive of what we're working towards here to get this money reallocated,
Great.
and looks pretty straightforward to me.
Great, thank you. Shalaine, can you share any electronic public comment that was shared with us? And then I also would like to know if there's any folks that are participating virtually that that have public comment to share, but let's go to the electronic public comment first.
Sure. And there were 2 separate comments submitted, both by Rick Smith from Davis and Weber County's Canal Company. The first is this: knowing this discussion was forthcoming, we're reviewing our numbers and refining things. We had originally projected both materials and labor/installation costs escalating over time. Well, things are competitive, and our installation costs haven't changed that much over the last 3 bids. There are some slight material increases, but not as much as predicted thus far. We've had some struggles with supply chain, but feel like it is getting better. It's a challenge to look out years in advance and guess what things will be based on the market. The biggest challenge we're seeing is the ARPA December 31st, 2026 deadline. Any possibility of swapping ARPA money for state monies so that we can have more time to spend the money? Other entities using ARPA funds too that could take on more ARPA and trade for state money without timeline strings. Even with projecting to buy materials early, we'll still have about $4 million of installation in 2026 through 2028 that would be after the deadline. We originally thought 13,000 retrofits would cost nearly $40 million. It may be closer to 28 since we're going faster, as well as prices not being as high as originally predicted, estimated, guessed. Another big variable, we're trying to figure out the large services which cost more, but we've been too busy overseeing contractors knocking out the smaller connections with limited staff and still trying to run everything else. Anyway, we wanted to pass this information along as we're trying to analyze if we can get more grant money due to the limited timelines. We have always thought we needed more, but upon further analysis, that amount may be minimal due to the 2026 deadline. In talking with another agency, they said they may not need more grant money after the two previously received grants. That money has gone further than originally planned. We're not sure how many more will be applying for this new upcoming round of secondary water metering grant applications. We have emailed all secondary water providers in Davis and Weber counties to let them know of the additional money and if they had a need. We desire more grant funds, but being able to spend it by December 31st, 2026 is a challenge. Our crews can't keep up with what we're doing now. That's the first comment, which I think raises some interesting concerns. The second is this, concerning the application period. We understand that water resources staff want to get applications in a timely manner, but many entities probably do not know about this fourth round of applications. If they are notified on July 1st, it may be challenging for some to respond during a holiday week. Several may not be in the office that week and get the notice on July 8th. We'd recommend a longer application period mainly because of the holiday. The other reason to provide more time is for these entities to analyze current and future expenditures to determine and decide if they want to pursue more secondary water meter grant funds. Entities may also need time to get authorization/approvals from their governing bodies. The other question is, what will water resources do if there are not enough applications to use all of the money? Will the state need to look at other means to pivot so the grant monies are not lost? Thanks again for your work on this and providing funding to install mandated secondary water meters. So those are Rick's two comments.
Great, thank you. I do want I have some questions and want to give the board the opportunity to ask some questions about those comments. But before we do that, I don't know if there's anyone else participating virtually from the public, but I'll look to the staff at down at Water Resources to help me coordinate that if there is. So is there any other potential for public comment right now?
No one has joined online. Those that were interested were just going to watch on YouTube. And
okay, excellent, thank you.
Rick submitted his public comments through the form, which still have not turned off, by the way, and we still haven't received any others. So
okay, perfect. Okay,
thank
you very much.
Sorry, Madam Chair, may I just add one point to Rick's comment? We have been in discussions with the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget on the ARPA funds, and we have a meeting set with them to go over how we're going to get the rest of the money not only contracted, but also authorized and committed for this funds that were withdrawn this last board meeting. It would be my understanding that if we don't get all applied for, at least through this next contract period, that they could look at taking it and doing something else with it. The governor's office is not interested in seeing this money not be put to good use, if that makes sense. I think it is important for us to hopefully get all of it applied for. And there's no guarantees that we would get any additional state funds for this at this time.
So because the action, and thank you, Shalaine, and, or I'm sorry, thank you, Candace, for that. I think it's instructive as we think about, you know, the action today, but just reminding everyone that the action today is around opening up that 4th application period and the dates of that application period. And then also the action is around the specific requirements where applicants will need to meet all board, state, and federal requirements at the time of application to be eligible. And so the second comment that came in, you know, kind of spoke to those things. I wonder if, and again, we'll go to the rest of the board too with questions here, but I wonder, or Director Hassenjager and your team, can you address how much flexibility we have around this application period, the timing of it, the duration of it? And when I'm asking about flexibility, I know we could do anything, but just in terms of being realistic about meeting the deadlines that we have to meet under the current structure of the program, with the funds needing to be spent by that December 2026 timeframe. Can you address just if there's any room for additional flexibility there for operationalizing stuff from your staff, from the staff perspective?
Yes, and knowing that this was one of the comments, part of why I muted was I wanted to have a little chat internally before the meeting started about timing and would we be okay to extend this? Would we feel comfortable as staff extending the application period for another week? I think if the board is happy with what we're asking for the second motion, because those requirements include that they must have an active UEI with the federal government, that they must have completed project plans and specifications, that they must have a project map, that they must be an active business entity in Utah. You know, those requirements that we're asking to make be in place at the time of application, I think that eases a little bit of the stress on staff, Marisa in particular, trying to help applicants meet those requirements. So if they're done, then that probably frees up a little bit of staff time and gives us a little more comfort if we extended the application period, because we do also understand it is a holiday week. Some people may be taking the whole week off. I do want you to understand that when we're looking at this, when all of these applications, and we won't look at any of them probably until the application period is closed, so we know how many we've received. But then we're going to have to go through and make sure they're all complete. And then do the fun prioritization and ranking like we did with the third round. And then ask project managers to prepare reports that are then gone through the review process before they can be presented to you. So our thinking with doing it this short originally was we might be able to get it to you for the August board meeting. And that allows time for contracting. But if all the requirements must be done before they apply, and so it takes a little more time, we probably won't get those reports to you until the October board meeting.
Okay.
But again, if their requirements are done and they don't have to work on that, that still gives us a couple months to complete a contract. So if the board would like to extend the application period, if they feel like that's more appropriate, I think we can handle that as long as the second motion passes, if that makes sense.
Thank you. So that's where I was trying to kind of parse through how much of this is driven by trying to meet the deadline of an August board meeting and I'm hearing that some of that's kind of in play, but that one, it is feasible for these to be approved by us in an October board meeting. And two, that means that there is room for extending the application period. Am I hearing, is that
Yes,
correct?
that's,
Okay.
that's what I'm saying. If the second motion passes, that all requirements have to be met before at the time of application, then that reduces the work staff has to do to get them to a place where they can contract. They're already ready to contract, then it just needs board's approval. So we would have the time to get it to you by October, which then gives us October, November, and the first part of December to get a contract in place.
Okay. And how would just taking chair's prerogative here, extending through the end of July, is that too long?
That's probably longer than I would be comfortable with.
Okay, can you give us some advice then, kind of where you would recommend if we again, we'll go to the board, but if the board were leaning into providing a bit of extra time, what would be the spot to address the concerns around the time period being short, but also balancing that with the fact that we have to administratively move on these things to get them under contract? What would the recommendation be?
Yeah, Maurice is the one that has to do a whole bunch of this, so I'm going to let her speak to this.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The requirements that we're talking about is show that we can do authorization and committal in one board motion when we get there. Some of these requirements, if they don't already have them, like the unique entity identification number for the federal government, that can take months to get it figured out, depending on how much they focus and prioritize that. And that's what we have found. We are 2 years into this and still have a couple entities that still don't have their unique entity identification number for a myriad of reasons. Sometimes it's just extremely complicated. If we have one that does not have an active business, which we have run into already, that has taken months also for that to be activated. Apparently it's activated now, but that's taken months. So these are some of the things that if the application arrives and we look into some of these things, plus the plans and specs and the water conservation plan having to be approved by the division and adopted by them. If any of those things are not done, the concern that I have and the experience I've had over the last 2 years is that it's very difficult to get those completed.
Marisa, if the application requires all those things are done, and so those items that you've mentioned, those applications would be ineligible under this current structure. What would the date of application? What would the time period be that you would recommend be?
I would still like the opportunity to potentially get this on the August meeting. So another week. If we go to the end of July, that option goes away. And I'm concerned, I don't know if we'll get 20 applications.
If it were to go on the October board meeting agenda, what are the cons of it going on the October board meeting agenda?
Madam Chair, if I might add to both Marisa and Shalaine's comments. One of the things, as Marisa said, extending this another week or even 2 weeks isn't going to give people enough time to meet all these requirements if they don't already have them. I think the biggest thing that maybe an additional week would do is to give them one notice. And so I had just started talking to Shalaine and Maurice about how we're gonna get this information out, that we're gonna open a third or fourth application period. So it just gives them time and notice to, if they've already done all these requirements, to get a new application process in. It should be relatively simple if they have all of these things. Our application is not that complex. But it's really just giving them time over the holiday weekend to make sure that they know about it. So I was thinking like July 12th, having them do, but that is up to the board.
What are we set right now?
Yeah,
We're to the 8th.
we've asked through the 8th, and I'd even be comfortable with, I think I'd even be comfortable with the 15th, giving them through that weekend.
Yeah.
I know people don't want to work through the weekend, but I think if it's for free money, they'd probably be willing. And so I think we could even do that. But yeah, there are hands raised, so.
Okay. All right, let's just go to the board. And again, let's remember that the actions that we're looking to take will be about that application period, and then also about the eligibility on the application. And again, I think in our comments and questions, we should address this, but my understanding, at least in the conversation from last week, was that the sentiment of the board was that this recommendation around the application requiring all of those things is something that we are all comfortable with. And so I just want to make sure that, like, we're operating under the same logic here. And so with that, then, as Director Hassendiger has put forward, this conversation is about what's the appropriate amount of notice to make sure that people just have notice to get. And it's not about applying for the federal ID number, or it's not about some of those other things. This is about making sure that people have appropriate notice. Randy Crozier, you have your hand raised, then I'll go to Brian Steed and the person who is next that's not showing on, and then Kyle Stevens.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Candace. My thoughts are that I think we could get away with a 2-week period from July 1st to July 15th. I mean, that gives a 2 weeks notice, which is which is very commonly done. I don't think we want to go beyond that. And the only reason I would suggest going to the 15th is because of today being the 1st. That gives us 2 weeks of exposure. So I personally would be very comfortable with going to the 15th, but absolutely not beyond personally. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Steed, I see you nodding, and please go ahead and questions and comments.
Yeah, I would just say I agree. I think 2 weeks, it seems fair. And honestly, when we were considering this application period of July 1st to July 8th, I really hadn't put in my mind that it's the 4th of July weekend, and a lot of us are going to take some time off during that time, and that makes some sense. And people may not be checking emails as regularly as well. And so I think that that extra week does make some sense. 2 more questions. One, just in terms of the second staff recommendation, are there a number of previous applicants that we know that would meet these criteria, but have not been able to get the amount of money they need? I mean, I know we're talking Davis Weber, but are there a number?
Yes, there are a number of districts, cities, especially who were limited before to that 5 million or 10 million, and now are eligible for additional funding if it's available. We do know that there are applicants out there who, and that's why I thought Rick Smith's first comment was an interesting take on it, that brings up the concern, though, can they actually get it spent by 2026 if projects are coming in a little bit under estimate? And but to that point, I also think there's only so much we can do. We can do our very best to get it out the door, and they can do their very best to spend it. And at the end of all of this, we can say we've done our best.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, can I respond to Brian also?
Yes, please do. And also let's not forget he has another question, but yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Regarding specifically those that would already have everything in place that we they should, because they did last time. When we did that third round and had to prioritize, the request was for total request from several of them was about $67 million, and we only had 41 million available. So that leaves a gap of about 26 million. We are hovering right now around 25 million that's been either withdrawn or they've completed their project. And there's another potential 1 million that could come back as well, that we're kind of hovering and waiting to see, because they're coming in under budget. So they can't use all the funds. Excuse me. So yes, we've got that balance.
That's super helpful. Thank you so much. Second question, Madam Chair. I don't believe that we can guarantee a state funds swap. I mean, I don't think that we can guarantee future probes. And if staff can correct me on this, there aren't additional current probes that have been unspent, correct?
Right.
So
No.
while I'm completely sympathetic to that, just based on the answer to this question, I don't think we can guarantee that. So I think that, again, to what Shalaine said, we can do the best we can. Thanks.
Great, thank you, and thanks for making that clarification about those funds not being appropriated. That's, again, we should be taking action on like current appropriations. Thanks for making that clarification. We'll go to Board Member Kyle Stevens and then Board Member Mike Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the comments and the healthy discussion we've had relative to this issue. And I compliment Rick Smith for being proactive in helping to bring this issue to the forefront. That's enabled us to have this discussion. Just a couple of comments. I would be supportive of and think that we do need to have consideration on extending the application period. And to the board, I think we need to be flexible. If we can't meet the August deadline and we're not scheduled for another October, we need to be flexible to be able to assist staff as best as we can with our meeting. If we need to have electronic meetings or make ourselves available, I think we need to do that so that we can take advantage of getting the money out. And then the last comment I guess I would make is, and that would be towards the applicants themselves, that they too have got to be very proactive in moving forward to be able to take advantage of the opportunity that's before us, with these grant funds that have been made available. So those would be my comments at this point.
Thank you. Board Member Davis.
Thank you. I agree wholeheartedly with what Board Member Stevens said. I think that we need to be flexible on that, to be able to have another electronic meeting or something later on in August or September if we need to. I fully support that, if that will help the process. The other thing I feel is that we as a board and our staff of the department are literally doing everything possible to make $20+ million available to these companies. And I appreciate that they're under the gun and they're doing everything they can, but we're doing all we can. And if we need to encourage them to find more help, to install them, to do other things, I think that's a little bit on them. But I don't know what we do more. And I think this is a great opportunity for something that is a requirement through state statute now for many of these entities. And hopefully they can recognize that and do whatever they can, because I know we are. And so I feel good with what we're proposing here. I feel good with the 2-week period. I think this is a great opportunity, and I'm hopeful that they'll be able to find ways to utilize those funds.
Well
Thank
said.
you.
Well said. Thank you. I definitely saw nods across the screen. Board Member Holmgren, we'll go to you next for questions and comments. And then if you would be willing, I think it would be appropriate to be at the place where motions could start. And so because we're going to give you the last word, I'll give you the opportunity to start with motions if you'd like. We can go to other board members too if we need to, but.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mike, I agree with everything that's been said. Without overwhelming or overburdening our staff, I would feel comfortable going to the 21st of July if that meant getting more money out. But if that pushes us into a corner too tightly, then I would be comfortable with July 15th. But I think an additional 14 days would help them out. And, you know, just what we've already said about the holiday week and all that stuff conflicting with people having their board meetings.
Could the staff respond to that 21st date, just because I think maybe we're headed towards a motion coming from Board Member Holmgren?
Sure. Madam Chair, we would prefer the 15th. But the fact that the board has brought up a potential additional board meeting made me relax a lot and feel better.
Okay, yeah.
So if I
Yeah,
may,
we got a thumbs up from the board on that.
I'm gonna make a comment. Yeah, well, and it could be, you know, Candace mentioned the 18th also, which gives
19th. That's a
Yeah.
Friday.
I am gonna mention one more week. There's another holiday, the 24th of July. There's just holidays everywhere. And if we, you know, don't do a special board meeting and we wait till October, then we're hitting Thanksgiving, you know, we're hitting those holidays. So, you know, and when I'm talking holidays, I'm talking about state holidays. We've got Columbus Day, we've got, you know, so the 24th of July is a holiday for my staff. You know, so just kind of a comment about that.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know that another week is going to really help with the requirements getting completed.
But
Yeah, and I don't think this is about requirements. It's just about, at least for me, it's about just that public notice and just being as open as we can. I'm not sure what the statute is on this particular board, but I know in many cases the chair has, you know, is one of the decision makers around calling special meetings. And I will just say that I would plan to call a special meeting in this particular instance. And so I lean towards, I understand it's not that extra week doesn't buy a whole lot in terms of work time, but it just a little bit extra. I would like to lean towards, but that's again, completely acknowledging that this still becomes an incredible burden on the staff. Either
Madam
way.
Chair,
Mhm.
if I could just chime into Charles' comments. I think the 21st being a Sunday, I'd prefer not to put a weekend date on it. If we want to extend it beyond the 15th, I think the latest I would feel comfortable with is the 19th. That's the Friday. So that gives 2 solid business weeks without a holiday. But notice goes out on the 1st. It's a holiday week. I get that. But then we have, if we close it on the 19th, before the holiday week, the next week, I would be more comfortable with that. And I agree that adding the possibility of an electronic meeting, possibly in September, does ease some burdens. So
19th sounds good to me.
I mean, the 21st is my birthday. I was kind of excited about that date, but
Hey,
sorry, Julia.
We will send the applications your way then, Julia.
I was gonna say that. I mean, sure.
Well,
So, Board Member Holmgren?
Juliet, does
Yeah,
that
go
mean
ahead.
you're going to have a special electronic meeting on your birthday as well?
Of course,
You can
of
call
course
them.
not.
That's great. We can
Come
add that
on
to the
over.
calendar in addition to us getting together at Charles's house next week. on the
I
4th.
like it. I think we, our social calendar is very full on this board, but there's no one else I'd rather spend time with.
Thanks.
Board Member Holmgren, I think can I ask you to go ahead and try that motion as you've kind of moved towards it with that little bit longer date, and we'll try it again. I want to make sure. I mean, board members should vote with what they think is right or optimal, but let's try it.
All right, Madam Chair, I will move that the board set forth application period of July 1st, 2024 through July 19th, 2024.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Great, thank you. Board Member Steed, further discussion? And Director, can you help me with the roll call vote, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Board Member Davis.
Yes.
Board Member Crozier.
Aye.
Board Member Holmgren.
Aye.
Board Member Steed.
Aye.
Board Member Stevens.
Aye.
All right, Chair moves that motion passes. We need another motion around the criteria essentially for this round of applications.
Madam Chair, this
Go
is-
ahead, Kyle.
Oh, excuse me. This is Kyle Stevens. I will move that the board state that the only applicants who meet all of the board, state and federal requirements to receive ARPA grant funds at the time of application are eligible in this round.
Thank you for that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I
it.
second, yep.
Supported by all. Seconded to Board Member Steed is the one that I saw first. Discussion? And Director, will you please do the roll call vote?
Yes, Madam Chair. Board Member Davis.
Aye.
Board Member Crozier.
Aye.
Board Member Holmgren.
Aye.
Board Member Steed.
Aye.
And Board Member Stevens.
Aye.
All right, Chair rules that motion passes, and we're done with business for today. So that being said, it's getting close to a weekend. I know we have a full day ahead of us, but we need to get that work done and get on to the weekend. So I would absolutely be looking for a final motion.
Also move.
All right, well done. I can't ever remember if it's the second or not. I think it was seconded by Board Member Davis. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you to everyone, and thanks to the board for making the time to get together to execute on this, and then also many thanks to the team down on North Temple for making this this special meeting work and everything work. So appreciate you. And
Well, happy birthday on the 21st if we don't see you till then.
yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you,
Appreciate
JC.
it. Safe travels to everyone who's traveling in the next couple of weeks, and we'll see you soon.
Very good.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.